everyone, welcome to GardenFork Radio. We're here with Eric and Erin. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, Eric. Thank you.
We're doing a Skype call. Erin is in Wisconsin. I'm in New York City, and I actually really miss Wisconsin.
Well, it's beautiful in Wisconsin today. I don't know what it's like there, but it's beautiful in Wisconsin today. So it's sunny and blue skies, and we had fog for 2 weeks, and now we don't anymore, so it's great.
It was really hot and sticky here, and my in-laws were visiting.
How'd that go?
It went fine, but I just wish it wasn't so hot and sticky,
That's a little oppressive, yes.
We don't have central air conditioning. We just have air conditioners in the two bedrooms, and so the rest of the place is a little sticky. So I had a lot of fans going, but they weren't complaining, or they were pretty good sports about it. So
well, that's good.
And they bought me dinner, so
even better.
Yeah. So everyone, today we're going to talk about the lost art of letter writing, Indian summer and El Nino, and whatever else pops into our heads. So, Erin, a while back, we were emailing back and forth, and you wanted to talk about letter writing, and I had been thinking about that as well. What kind of brought it up on your radar?
So I'm reading this book that is called Dear Friend and Gardener. It's a book by Beth Chatto and Christopher Lloyd, who are famous British gardeners. And it's an old book. I think it was published in 1998. But the entire book is nothing but reprints of letters that they sent each other. So it's amazing the things that they talk about in these letters. I mean, primarily they're talking about their gardens, but they talk about all sorts of other things as well. And it sort of got me thinking, I have never described my garden or anything else in my life to somebody like this before. And I think it's the only thing, you can't get that in an email or on the phone. I just sort of found it really touching, and it got me sort of thinking about how people don't communicate like that very much anymore, because, we live in a great age of instantaneous communication, which I love. And trust me, I would hate to go back to not having that. But I do think we're sort of missing out on, this deeper, more rich experience that comes only from writing a letter.
Yeah, totally. I've actually thought about, from kind of an archivist standpoint, I guess you can, you can save all your emails. A lot of times they're on, not to geek out, but I have a POP email system, so it downloads it and saves it on my local computer. But if you have Gmail, I don't think it saves it on your computer. It saves it in the cloud. So if you pass away and someone doesn't have your Gmail account information to log in, and say you're like a professor or a noted person and they want to archive all that, it might be gone,
Right. And you think about all the famous letters of history and what you learn from, historical letters that people, there are, of course, great historians have studied these things, but all these things that come out that you only find out from a letter, what presidents were thinking and great people of times gone by. And you only really get inside their head by reading their letters, which tend to emerge, from somebody's attic or a family member or something, decades down the road.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about the Ken Burns style of documentary on PBS, where they have somebody reading the letter and they might show the letter, and then they do that. The camera zooms in, and shows still pictures and stuff, and that's going to be gone.
It is. In addition to the fact that, you think about all the beautiful penmanship in those letters, nobody can write cursive anymore. So that's going to be gone too.
I was taught to write cursive. I guess I could practice.
So was I, but my handwriting has gotten really, really bad over the years. So I have to make a conscious effort to write neatly if I'm actually going to write out a thank you note or something where I'm actually trying to have somebody read it instead of just my little chicken scratch notes.
Now, this is funny, but I was thinking, who would I write a letter to? And I thought about a friend of mine in San Francisco who was a childhood friend, but I don't know his postal address.
Well, you can probably look it up on the internet.
Oh, that's right. I could use the internet to find their postal mailing address.
Right.
Or I could email him and ask him what it is and say, I'm going to write you a letter. What's your postal address?
Right. Well, I think that if I think, are you going to send him? Are you going to look up his address and send him a letter?
Yeah, I actually used to send out mail art back in the day when I really loved using a photocopier to create kind of collage art things. And I might start doing that again with people. I think some people might appreciate that.
I think it would be. I bet you somebody would be shocked and surprised, and I just fear that I've been sort of thinking about the same thing. Who could I write a letter to? And I have somebody in mind. I just have this feeling that she would receive this letter and think, "Oh my gosh, something horrible has happened to Erin. She's dying or something," and you know, and be like, "Well, I don't know why she didn't just send me an email like she always does." But yeah, I think I'm going to try to. I've been saying that for a little bit now, and I haven't done it yet. But I'm going to try to carve out some time and write an actual letter without any notification whatsoever, and just see what happens. Just see if I get a reply or I get a letter back. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, now my head's thinking. So everyone, do you do any letter writing? We'd like to hear your thoughts on this. It's radio at gardenfork.tv. Always good to hear from everybody. So Erin and I were talking, and like September's here.
Yeah. How did that happen?
I don't know. It was a blur. Summer was a blur.
Well, let's not use it in the past tense because I like to think it's still summer.
Oh, that's right. Rick calls it the long sloping shoulder of summer. So yeah,
Well, that's an excellent phrase. I like that. I might steal that.
he's the GardenFork linguist. So yeah, go ahead. He's all about sharing. So yeah,
There you go. Good.
just tell him I
Yeah,
said so.
the fact that summer, for all intents and purposes, is more or less over is so incredibly depressing to me. And the only thing that brings me hope is that I recently read an article that pointed out that in years with strong El Ninos, winters in the Great Lakes tend to be pretty mild. So I might be able to make it through without like some sort of serious mental anguish if we can indeed get a mild winter out of this.
Yeah, and you're right on Lake Michigan. So you not only get weather, but you get what's called lake effect snow.
We do, although we don't get nearly as much lake effect snow as people on the east side, because we're on the west side of Lake Michigan. The
Right.
east side of Lake Michigan, they get hammered even more than we do. So we don't get nearly the feet of snow that they do, but we do get our own special little snowfall. And we are literally, our house is like 400 feet from the lake, so we get more snow than they do even a quarter of a mile inland from us.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a special little treat that came with it that we hadn't quite anticipated. Not that it would have changed our mind about where we live, but
No, it's great though. I like your pictures that I see you post. It's the drive to work, and it's a very similar picture every time, but it's beautiful to watch it. There's farm silos on the right-hand side, and there's some woods on the left-hand side.
yeah, it's sort of to me, it's sort of the quintessential Wisconsin view. So I stop in exactly the same place whenever I sort of think of it on my way back. And so on the left side is a state park that we live near. On the right side is a farm, and there's the silos and the barn and the whole thing. And dead ahead, which you can't see all the time, but dead ahead is Lake Michigan, kind of down at the bottom of the hill. And to me, that sort of sums up Wisconsin. I love it. I haven't been doing it as much, though, because as you know, Eric, I dropped my phone in Lake Michigan in July.
Oops.
And I have been borrowing other people's phones, very nice friends who have had very old iPhones. I've been borrowing those for several months until I can get the new iPhone, which they just announced recently. And so I have this old iPhone 4, and it does not take very good pictures. So I haven't been taking that picture very often.
Wow, I didn't know that you were still going with the loaner phone. All right.
It's shocking. My friends are amazed. They all said, "You'll never make it." Because I'm a little bit of a gadget freak. I like little stuff like that. So they're all like, "You're never going to make it to getting a new phone." But I have persevered, and at 11:01 my time tonight is when you can pre-order the new iPhone, and I will be doing that at 11:02 probably.
In the city here, people will line up outside the Apple store to get the latest gadget, and I would never do that.
Neither would I. I only do it because I can order it online and it shows up in my office at the exact same day that the people who are standing in line can get it.
Yeah.
I have a problem with standing in line. I generally don't believe in standing in line to spend my money. So I don't usually stand in line to go into, restaurants or
Right.
bars. And I don't like standing in line to purchase something because I feel like that's not right. I don't know. I've got a personal issue with that.
Yeah, I don't wait in lines. Like if there's we're out to dinner and people are like, oh, there's a wait. I'm like, well, we're going somewhere else,
Right. Right. I can put up with a certain amount of that. But at some point you're like, oh, it shouldn't be this hard to spend my money.
We had to, I was visiting my family in the Midwest there, and they wanted to go to the Cracker Barrel for lunch, for Saturday breakfast. And I'm like, are you insane?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably like a push and shove scenario.
They're very polite, but crowded, and everyone's in the gift shop. And I'm like, this is how they make their money. They jam everyone into the gift shop, and you're looking around, looking at stuff going, I'll buy that,
Right. It's calculated for sure.
I have to do a GardenFork undercover, I think.
GardenFork undercover exclusive, blowing the lid off the deal at Cracker Barrel.
I actually like the Bob Evans because I like the counter. I like sitting at the counter at if I'm having breakfast alone or just with one other person, or even restaurants. I like to sit at the bar because I think the service is more interactive and faster.
I love sitting at counters, especially at Greasy Spoons, local Greasy Spoons in particular.
Yeah.
I am fascinated by people who can efficiently work a grill and a griddle and the whole deal for like a breakfast rush, because those people are amazing. They're, flipping bacon with one hand and making 18 different kinds of eggs, and they got pancakes over here, and they're the models of efficiency.
Yeah, I go to the Waffle House. When I land in St. Louis, my sister picks me up, and I'm like, Waffle House, and so there's a Waffle House near the, right off the interstate there. And the people that run the grill, the servers come over, and there's no like typing it into the computer and having it print on a little printer or anything. They just tell them each order, and they put a plate down, and they put different pieces of vegetable or one of those coffee creamers, and they have different, or a sugar packet. And I finally asked them what that was all about, and they explained to me it's a code for what goes on that plate.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I think a upside down coffee creamer means, 2 eggs scrambled kind of thing. And like a raw piece of onion means hash browns. It's very cool. And there's just a beautiful flow, and I enjoy watching that.
I do too. I think that's fun. I admire people who can get that whole thing down.
Now I want to go to a diner.
Get your Greasy Spoon fix.
There's a diner around the corner from us, but I live in Sunset Park, which is great, except this diner just doesn't look very inviting, and I haven't been to it, and I've lived here 2 years.
Oh. Maybe it's time to just go for it. Just try it.
A lot of times they have a security guard outside this diner, and I'm like, what's with that?
Yeah, that's usually not a great sign.
So if you guys have a favorite diner, let us know. If you ever go into Northwest Connecticut, if you go to Canaan, there is the Collins Diner. And I was actually there this weekend. It is a classic old shiny metal diner, and it's run by a local family. They're open for only breakfast and lunch, and run by a family. Very no nonsense, and you can kind of watch the family interaction behind the counter there. You clearly know who's in charge. Only cash, but a lot of people that are on like a little road tour or motorcycle groups stop there. And the food isn't amazing. It's just diner food, but it's just kind of that gestalt of experience that I enjoy there. Is
it an old business?
Yeah, the people that own it now have not owned it for like 100 years. They've owned it maybe 20 years, but it's been family owned since it was. I think they installed the diner in the late 40s.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
Right next to the railroad station, so it's cool.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't get necessarily great food at those places, but the ambiance makes up for any ills of the food.
Yeah, I mean, you could order a bacon, lettuce, and tomato, or a grilled cheese sandwich, or a simple burger and do just fine there, Mm-hmm. It's not like we're getting kale chips.
I'm sure.
Hey everyone, I'm wondering if you would consider becoming a monthly supporter of GardenFork Radio and GardenFork.tv. We've made it really easy to do so. We've started a Patreon campaign, and you choose a dollar amount every month that you would like to contribute to GardenFork. The suggested dollar amount is $3 a month. That's less than $1 a show, a buck a show, as Rick calls it. It's about $36 a year, so that's like a magazine subscription, basically, is how I think about it. If you're interested, there's a link in the show notes here. If you're listening on an iPhone in the podcast app, just tap on the GardenFork Radio logo of this episode, and it will show the show notes, and there's a link in there. Or go to patreon.com/GardenFork. That's patreon.com/GardenFork. There's also a link on every page of our website. If you consider that, that would be really cool. Appreciate that. You can also support GardenFork by using our Amazon shopping link, which is on our website. You can also go to gardenfork.tv/Amazon, and that, if the technology is working, should take you to Amazon as well. All right? Thank you. Were you paying it when you mentioned the El Nino? Are you paying attention to a particular? Are you big into the weather world, or just kind of? Oh yeah, I noticed that.
No, I'm just sort of a casual weather watcher, but I'm not big into it. I just sort of pay enough attention to know how it affects me personally.
I have a weather station up on my garage, sent to us by an early sponsor of GardenFork, our friend Tyler at Allison House, which is a severe weather data company, AllisonHouse.com. And it's solar powered with backup batteries. And I twisted my back a little while ago, so I can't go up on the ladder, but I want to get my weather station up and running for the fall. I have to start paying attention to the frost. When do you start getting frost up there?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Like, as a gardener, I should know this off the top of my head.
You'd think.
I think it's sort of, mid to mid-October. We can get that far probably. We're close enough to the lake that the benefit of the lake is that we stay warmer longer. So it takes longer to get warm in spring, but we stay much warmer longer, and our frosts come much later than anywhere inland.
I'm going to do some more salad greens this fall with a hoop house or two. That always kind of like keeps me going. And I love like pulling up the hoop house in the middle of winter, and we're at the beginning of winter at least, and there's some green lettuce there. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, just something fresh out of the garden. Oh, it's fantastic. Whatever lengths you sort of have to go to do that, I think is worth it.
And of course, we have some hoop house videos on the website. So you want to geek out for a minute?
Absolutely.
So I've been trying to make the GardenFork website better and more, basically to load faster, because I did a Google Webmaster Tools test of it, and it doesn't load very fast. It scores a 38 out of 100 from the Google Page Speeds Insights, if anyone's listening that knows what that is. So I combined we have a server. It's called a grid server. And the issue is a lot of the images, because they're larger images, they load very slowly because they're all loading from one server in, I think it's in Idaho somewhere. So I moved all the images, I've mirrored them, it's called, to Amazon's cloud service. So all around the world now, in these different Amazon servers are all the images for GardenFork. And when you go to a certain Amazon page, GardenFork page, the pictures are going to load from a server closer to you than the one in Idaho. And that's a big deal.
That's pretty cool. So here's my question. What happens if, obviously, you always think about hacking and all these things that sort of go on with websites. And obviously Amazon is huge. So I'm sure it would be a large target. At the same time, I'm sure they have probably better protection against that than most websites. So, are you really at the mercy of Amazon? If something bad happens to Amazon, is GardenFork in danger?
No, because I could just basically flip a switch, and then the pictures would load from our main server.
There you go.
I think that Amazon has an awful lot of redundancy built in.
I'm sure, yeah.
But there is that paranoia I have, where I think that bad people could probably start to affect our electrical grid,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of businesses. Well, is that how, was it Target or Kmart got hacked? And it was because their air conditioning service company had a login into the Target servers, and someone at the air conditioning company was sent this, it's called a phishing email, and this email convinced the person that they were legit at Target and to type in your password, and that's how they got in. So yeah, it's always going to happen. I just think I think Amazon and Google probably have an awful lot of redundancy and protection there. But I do think about that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if the GardenFork site goes down, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, now come on. I don't know about that.
So, but that was our little geekdom. I did get an email the other day, and it said, "Don't worry too much about geeking out because we actually find some of that interesting." So I was like, "Oh, all right." So there you go.
You're among your people.
Yeah. This most recent video we did, I went to my neighbor's house, and they have like an actual stand-up, really giant vegetable garden, and they use I call it a weed-free fabric. It's like greenhouse floor fabric, or you go to a nursery and they have this kind of black plastic mesh fabric on the ground everywhere. Mm-hmm. And they use that to keep the weeds down, and they basically just cut holes in it with a torch, and they plant all their cabbage and everything through that. So we did a video about that a couple years ago, and I wanted to do a follow-up to show what it looks like later in the year. Plus also the fabric has aged like 4 years now, and it's done quite well. And some weeds pop up, the ones that grow up through the little holes where you're planting your cabbage or whatever, but I really think that's a way to go. I actually use black plastic to grow my tomatoes. I cover the whole raised bed with black plastic, and I have the tomatoes coming up through little holes in it. But I was curious to see what other people do, and some people suggested wood chips. Some people suggested other mulch materials. Do you do anything like that?
I don't do a lot of that. If I mulch with anything, I mulch with either in the vegetable garden. I mulch with either chopped up leaves, yep. So it eventually turns into just leaf mold, or sometimes I do. I'm really into comfrey. So you grow comfrey and you can do all kinds of different things with comfrey. But one of the things I can do when I have extra leaves is I'll just cut the leaves off the plant and I'll put them essentially as a mulch around the base of my tomatoes. And comfrey is a great source of potassium. So a little, as they break down, a little bit of that potassium goes into the soil, which helps with your fruit production.
Wow.
So I also make a tea out of comfrey, which is the main thing I use it for. But if it grows crazy, it grows rapidly. When you cut it down, it's back within a couple of weeks. So I always have enough to sort of mulch a little bit. But I do think that landscape fabric, it's not landscape fabric, it is like nursery fabric. It's different from the stuff you put down like when you make a path or something. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have a big vegetable garden, I think it's huge. And then you just replace it when it's shot. And because it's not necessarily the prettiest thing in the world, but if you have a big vegetable garden, you're worried about production. And there is no doubt about it that, production is all about cutting down on those weeds and making sure that it's the plants that get the nutrients. So, but on the other hand, I hate that stuff in like a regular perennial garden. I think it's like horrible stuff. I hate it.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of weed fabric for gardening, and it looks like fiberglass or something, fiberglass sheeting, and it seems to be just kind of icky, and you cover it with mulch, I guess. Is that what you do?
Yeah, and it's bad, and it's not attractive. But the worst thing about it is that over time, dirt will end up on top of that, whether it's from leaves breaking down. There will be dirt in there, and all you need is one little seed, and now you can't even really properly weed, because if you try to get in there with a hoe, you just pull up the fabric.
Right.
So you can't even properly or easily weed it. I did it when I made a path in one of my gardens with pea gravel many years ago. And 2 years ago, I went in there and started pulling it up from underneath the pea gravel, which made a really big mess, but I couldn't handle it anymore because there were so many weeds growing in that pea gravel, because there was dirt had fallen in from outside the paths and leaves had broken down, and compost essentially was being created on top of this layer of fabric. So I won't make that mistake again when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah,
but
nature wins.
I think it serves a great purpose in a vegetable garden for sure.
Yeah, people were asking, and my neighbors have a connection with a nursery, and so they were able to buy. When the nursery was buying this stuff in a large quantity, they were able to buy some. You can buy it. I've got a link on the YouTube channel about where to buy it. But they sewed, it comes in an X-width roll, and they had a friend with an industrial sewing machine, and so they sewed the rolls together. So
that's a great idea.
It's like
That's
40
great.
feet wide. And it doesn't come from the store 40 feet wide. So
Right.
they sewed it together. So you could, at the end of the year, you just roll the whole thing up. It works really well. Very smart people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good idea.
They gave me a piece of it, and I have it in the Brooklyn backyard. I put wood chips in the big main area of the backyard, but I put this, that mesh fabric underneath it, and then the wood chips are on top because I just didn't want weeds growing up and I didn't want the dogs getting in mud. How unusual. And, it stood up pretty well. Even their paws are jamming on that plastic mesh stuff, and it still holds up. So good for that.
That's great.
Neat. Well, wow, we filled up 24 minutes.
Amazing how that happened.
Yay!
Went off on a fair amount of tangents, as usual.
Diners and letter writing.
There you go.
Maybe we could write letters while we're in the diner.
Absolutely. Now you're onto something.
Put down the phone, write a letter. Well, you'll have to come back on in a couple of weeks and we can hear about the new phone experience.
Oh, I'd be happy to tell you about it because I'm telling you, I can't wait.
All right, everyone. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. And if you want to find out more about Erin, it's theimpatientgardener.com, correct?
That's right.
Impatient garden or gardener?
Gardener.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later. GardenFork's theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com.